How about now? Thank you, I'm here all week. Just a couple of housekeeping items. I want to let you know that Mayor Beck he'll be here at about 6:30. He is accepting an award from the Arizona Chamber of Commerce for Peoria being awarded Best Business or Best City to Do Business with. So he will be here right about at 6:30, just a little housekeeping. And then I know I can sniff out the fact that there's a few people here to speak about the cell tower. And that is going to be on the regular agenda at 6:30. So I just want to make sure that everybody was kind of clear of what was happening before we got started and you weren't wondering what was happening. Now I'll go back to what I should be saying. Will the clerk please note the roll for the study session? Thank you. The only item on the agenda for today is an update on Peoria's 2026 housing policy. And for that presentation, I will now turn it over to city staff.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. I'm here with Kelly Kincaid, the Neighborhood and Human Services Director, to talk to you about a proposed City of Peoria 2026 housing policy. So if you remember, we were here in December. We were talking about the results of the 2025 Housing Needs Assessment that was required by Senate Bill 1162, along with a housing study. So tonight we're going to cover a problem statement that is identified from that study and assessment, the impacts of that problem on our community, a proposed policy statement on how we propose to address it, some policy options or tools from which to select from and put in our toolbox. We'll take feedback from you because really tonight's study session is just feedback and direction on what tools we want to consider for future use. So there's no decisions being made to here. Any use of any of these policies or tools in the future would come back for council action on a case-by-case project-specific basis. So we'll wrap it up, what we hear back from you, key takeaways, and what our next steps would be. So this table should look familiar to you from a previous, right? This is the table from the Housing Needs Assessment. And then the problem it shows us is Peoria's current housing gap, if left unchecked, may lead to economic, fiscal, social, and community impacts. And as you see in the table, this shows the housing deficiency in each income strata for Peoria and at the time of the assessment, and the total number and the breakdown between rental and owner-occupy. And the most extreme deficit is in the 0 to 80% median household income. But all areas, all income levels suffer some kind of deficit. And so we need tools in order to best address them. There'll be different tools for different projects, income levels, developments, et cetera. But the impacts are real for all of them. There's economic impacts where employers may not be able to hire or retain workers if they don't have housing available to them. It forces a long commute and reduces worker productivity. Our younger workforce may not even be able to live in the city. Financial impacts, these are borne by the city in these cases. We may have increased service demands through increased eviction if people can't stay in place. Even homelessness response can go up if the lower income levels cannot afford to remain in their homes or find housing. Can find fiscal improvements, it costs in higher infrastructure costs for transportation, our roads, and for those who have to travel, and we lose that commercial spending power for anybody who can't reside where they work. Socially, we could have, again, the homeless increase. Families may need to double up or split households in order to afford shelter. Seniors can't age in the place that they raised their kids or grew up and own a home for years because it can no longer afford to stay there. So that neighborhood stability declines and the community suffers losses at workforce level, and that further declines the cultural and economic diversity and the vibrant commercial. So all that being said, what can we do about this? We've drafted a broad, encompassing housing policy statement. I think we shared it at the December one, and it's meant to be broad and all-encompassing given the spectrum we're trying to address. In that, the City of Peoria recognizes housing as a critical infrastructure and commits to expanding safe, attainable, and diverse housing options for residents across all income levels through equitable land use, strategic investment, and public-private collaboration. And how are we going to do that? through tools, right? There's just a lot of different policies that we can use, and we need your guidance. This is where there's a lot of known out in the housing development industry. Some are available, some are attainable, some are preferred, some are not preferred. So we like your guidance as we go forward on what things should be in there. So here's my manifestation of a toolbox and the little subset of tools. And these PowerPoints that we bring to council, many of us do, is a tool itself. We use this tool to convey information, influence, and graphically. So I love this one. It had the Peoria blue, it had the icons, it had all the categories I love. And I further use a new tool within PowerPoint. It's an AI tool that allows you to build such a thing. But it's not a perfect tool because in here is a spelling error that I no less than 24 times tried to get through AI to fix it. And it would change things. And in fact, I have a patch over a duplicate, a white patch on this slide to use the tool I was so enamored with. But it exacerbates the idea I'm trying to get across is tools are meant for the right place at the right time. Maybe I used the wrong tool in this case because I was married to this idea, but it's the right tool, right place, right time. And again, I go back, I'll say that over and over again. No decisions are being made today. We're talking about things that are available for any given development opportunity in the future that can help us address the housing deficiency before us. So in that, we've got about 6 infill development tools. And infill is my favorite. This is already developed parts of town, right? We have a vacant parcel that's been vacant for years for any number of reasons. It's a zoning issue, it's a size, shape, traffic, access, any number of things. Specialized infill zoning, which we already do on a lot of things. You see them come before you through a PAD, right? It's very specialized to the site. So I like it because it's a right tool for the right place, right time for whatever your needs are. If you need an increased density, the newly adopted ADUs, accessory dwelling units, you can add to further increase it, or the missing middle legislation that we just adopted in the last year. So it's a zoning infill. There's a lot of it in the older parts of town that otherwise aren't productive uses to the community or our tax base. So that's one of my favorite ones. Inclusionary zoning, you may have heard of, this is out there in the universe. This is where you mandate a developer to set aside a certain number of units for affordable. However, state law in Arizona prohibits that, so municipalities cannot do that. However, it doesn't mean if they're before us, and many times developers come before you asking for something, right? They're not building by the zoning right allowed to them. They want some kind of adjustment made for them. Well, it opens up a negotiation between the city and them. And if we have needs from a housing shortage, and here they can help us with our need through voluntarily donating the number of units towards our cause, whichever that one is. So we can accomplish it through voluntary. Now, density bonuses, right? Every zoning allows a certain density, number of units per acre, but a density bonus, we can negotiate if we want even a higher level of bonus, or the bonus goes towards the set aside if we're trying to meet a housing deficiency. We can do that again through a PAD. That's a very specialized per site development, or you can amend the code to allow it. I'll talk about codification code amendments tonight. They are a tool. It would be a future tool if you so desired. It could be in the toolbox to be used later, but I'm not advocating those. So far, we have enough work to do that we can do on a site basis through PADs.
And that's why I'm saying, thank you, Vice Mayor. Chris, I have a question for you. So can you explain why some housing developments that are built with higher densities and what the benefits for that community are when there's higher density? What additional benefits bring to that community?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Edwards, good question. I mean, density is used to keep costs down, right? And so the developer wants to do it because they can divide the land costs among a higher number of units. So with a lower cost per unit, there's economies of scale in building vertical and higher density. And so that's what the benefit to the developer is. We have it on here as a benefit to the community because we can use that to help meet the housing deficiencies at different income levels if we need to. Not all see it as a benefit. If you're an adjacent property owner, you're going to have, they generally will have certain issues with densities, any number of things. And that's why I keep going back to every site, and I'll get a little bit further deeper into other, because a lot of these tools end up being combined under one project, right? And none of it goes without due justice and due diligence on the impact of any of the suggested tools that would be in place. So not knowing whatever the project was, I don't know if they're going to be before the city asking for something. If so, this is something we could deploy at that time if they're building something by right. And the density benefit is certainly their own from a lower cost of development and or hitting a niche income level that they're marketing to. Oops, I think I already. So along the same vein, you know, you've had projects come in and requested reduced parking requirements, and they can use any number of logical reasons. It's a narrow transit. They think a lot of their residents are going to use the transit, so they won't have a high parking need. It could be in the downtown development. We're trying to create a walkable commercial corridor down here, so there's a lot of live work kind of scenarios, and or seniors. I just had both my mother and mother-in-law move into a senior housing. We sold both their cars. They don't drive anymore. There's no need for it. They provide transportation. Regardless of what it is, they would all require a parking study to justify whether they need the standard parking spaces or not. And again, it becomes that negotiating. If it's the right place, right time, right tool, that may be of consideration. Expedited permitting. So time is money, right? Developers burning up, you know, they got loans out on a project and cost for those loans. The city actually currently has an expedited review if we have capacity where they could pay 1.5 times the permit fee for expedited. Well, we could use that same kind of tool for our own benefit on anything that's being negotiated if they're wanting something from us. So we can apply that on any. We're getting a public benefit, right? It's exchange for something meeting our housing deficiency. And money is money. Reduced waves or waived fees is a reduction. So you lower your cost, you can pass that on to the residents. Currently, the city offers a 50% reduction of permit fees for not-for-profit developers. We could extend that to anybody in exchange for what we're trying to get out of that deal. Long-term affordability, these are more strategies as a tool, right? You can acquire and hold strategic parcels, land banking, and similar to what, you know, the car wash site we did, we weren't able to move it, and then that came up as an opportunity that you all supported for affordable housing development. You could prioritize land in high opportunity areas, so maybe parts of the city are not developed, but are going to be developed, like the PIC, NPG. If there's any residential out there, the city might want to entertain holding a section of it to meet a housing need, tailored to whatever that need is once it's fully developed and prices are exorbitant and would otherwise be impossible to develop something. You can bundle and prepare sites for development. They may be odd shape, mixed match, zoning different. You can bundle them, consolidate them, replat, rezone, and put it back out. You can do it through competitive RFPs. We could leverage our own city land like we did on the car wash site, donate to the cause, keep that cause down, and pass it on to that owner and getting affordable, you know, meeting that income level deficit that's noted in the assessment. But any one of these would translate into long-term affordability requirements. We would have land use restrictions, a community land trust, some kind of mechanism that maintains that affordability over a lengthy period. There's also employer-assisted housing. This is a strategy for workforce housing where employers can help employees access affordable housing near the workplace. Other large employers like us, we can partner with to improve employee recruitment, retention, productivity, and quality of life while reducing the burden of the commute. These can show up in the forms of down payment or closing cost assistance, low interest loans, create workforce housing or a master lease for employer-sponsored housing, financial counseling, home ownership, or just like we did, land contribution towards that. And it works for the employee's work source, and it really can be a benefit to meet two needs at once. So as much as we have a deficit, you don't want that deficit to grow, so there's preservation strategies. So those who are otherwise in an affordable housing situation, you don't want to lose them if they have an emergency home repair that they can't afford and otherwise may have to leave. That affordable unit then flips and becomes a market rate. Somebody buys, rehabs it, and it's now an upscale house. So we have federal funds, grants that we have a subcommittee that we just approved in last week's budget where we assist with the home repairs to keep them there. And then we extend their affordability restrictions based on the investment for another 10 or 20 years. We also work with Habitat and other nonprofits to go out and rehab a home. So if they couldn't afford to do it, we can do it and then have a deferred loan that keeps them in there for a longer period of time. We can refinance any investment we do, tax credit recapitalization. There's any number of ways we can help preserve the affordable homes that are already out there. Or we can do acquisition, rehab, resale through our nonprofit Habitat. We also do that. So then we have a net new added to our inventory instead of just preserving. There's potential zoning reform. So the top two we've already done just in the last year as required by legislation, accessory dwelling units. So an existing unit can add 1 or 2 more units, increasing availability and affordability that way. Missing middle, it addresses the multiplex scenario, so slight increases in density. You can target areas for overlays, a transit-oriented if we have a high need. Downtown, we have a nexus of a walkable area with a fixed route P83. If that's a site development comes up and produces and wants to utilize some of that, that's an overlay that we can dictate how it gets used. We can encourage streamlined approvals and provide predictable pathways in order to accomplish this for both the developers and what the city is trying to get out of the same deal. And then land use strategies, right? The community land trust, which is the one we're using at the car wash site, right? We're going to get 3 sites in there where we separate the land ownership from the building ownership. And it's to do long-term leases. It's perpetually affordable indefinitely. And or we can do adaptive reuse. If the mayor were here, he was working with us strongly to work with local older hotels to reuse them that they're in disrepair or otherwise weren't being used. Or you can look at empty office space, commercial space that could be reused adaptively that aren't contributing to our tax base and otherwise become a blight on the community. Modular housing is one we looked at. It's incredible. They can build a home on wheel. It's not a mobile home. It's a home built on a frame that's delivered on a trailer and plopped right in and assembled literally within 2 weeks at a very reasonable price, and the aesthetics are incredible. You wouldn't know it was a manufactured home, but it's an assembly line thing. A great way to do small site development at a low cost and quick to delivery. And then again, the transit-oriented, there's just any number of ways you can tie all these together, multiple tools in one location should all they align up to the needs of the city. So that was a lot of tools thrown at you. I'm gonna turn the keys over to Kelly, figuratively, because she's the director who's gonna do all this. And she's gonna talk what we heard tonight and then what steps we're gonna go forward.
Thank you, Chris. Vice Mayor Finn and council members. So first of all, I'd just like to take a little pause. Chris has given a lot of information for us to kind of digest and think about. And so in doing so, I just would like to get any feedback that you have. The council policy is intended to guide. It's a tool for future decision-making. So with that being said, based on what you've heard so far, is there anything that you would like us to look further into, anything that you have concerns about, or anything within the toolbox that you would not like us to include moving forward?
Councilmember Dunn.
So I just wanted to ask, there was a Habitat for Humanity home that we discussed. And I don't want to give away all the thunder that you guys share, but in our meeting, I was really impressed with the work that you did and the way you put that together so people could afford it and have opportunity and potential opportunities down the line. Because, and again, I won't give all the details, but because I don't know if I should or not, or I can.
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Dunn, yes, I can speak more to it without divulging too much, but that is an acquisition or rehab. So it's a new development where we talked about possibly marketing, because the community it's in is a low-income community. So this offers a move-up strategy that if we build an affordable house, and we put it in the land trust, and the cost is even lower, And if somebody buys that from the community, then we can look to buy their property as part of the deal, or rehab that one and resell that, and we can lift the whole community. Any community that, once you get one foothold in, you can just market it within and get, everybody gets uplifted.
Well, one of the things that really struck me, though, is in that neighborhood, there was some problematic things, with construction because of, different flooding and
Yep.
all kinds of different
Environmental.
things. And so, like, when the city comes in there and they can do everything just right, sometimes I would think, because that's it's a costly to do that. So you're actually taking something that people probably couldn't afford. We're putting in the money and making it affordable and doing it right. And so I just want to commend you on all the work because I was very impressed with it, and I just wanted to thank you publicly. Sure. Thanks.
Councilmember Bullock?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Help me understand, because this is not my area of specialty. I know this is probably a discussion for another day because it's early in the game, if you will. How does this theory, this opportunity, this toolbox work in the Mesquite District? For a simple reason is Mesquite doesn't have any infill areas per se. It's all new land. Now there's plans for it already. We already talked about that before, and that's fine. But about 6 months ago, I had a home builder, a well-known home builder, approach me about popping in a small, about 200 home in a very small area. And I pushed back against it because it didn't make sense for that area because they were 900 square foot homes, packed very, very tight together. And I said, can you give me, I know you can't predict, but give me an idea of what this would cost in, they say, 3 or 4 years when they finally went live. Just spitball it. And the builder said about $450,000 in today's dollars, and that's how much ever, $500,000 in 3 or 4 years. And I said, that's not affordable in the term affordability that we give it. And of course, he correctly said, well, the land is so expensive up there, we have to, if we were to do something like that, and I understand there's a math part of it, and then does it fit in the surrounding community? I mean, there's different components, I understand that. How does that work in Mesquite, though, when I push back against, I call them, I won't tell you the word I use, but they're just micro homes at $450,000 to $500,000 does not meet that affordability need. Is that even possible in an area that just the land is so unbelievably expensive and only accelerating with what's happening up in the Peoria Innovation Core? Just trying to understand how that would possibly happen in the future, because I don't see it at this point, if that makes sense.
Yes, Vice Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Bullock, there's a lot in that question. I mean, every zoning, by right, they can do what they can do. And if the land is expensive, his cost to produce and sell so everything's affordable to somebody based on their income level, right? So in December, we showed the income strata, and there's needs for high end. Well, if there's not enough for the high end, they're reaching down to the lower level to soak that up because they need a place to live, and everybody keeps reaching down, and the bottom level has nowhere to reach because there's nobody below them. So it is economics at play, right? And so one of the strategies could be the buy and hold strategy, but that's a long-term play, right? It's a land banking. You got to buy it at today's prices, and then prices are going to even zoom. So 450 is not what 450 used to be. It's the new median, right? We had all the median prices and everything. So if they're asking the city for something, that's our opportunity to negotiate, right? At any level, whether it's high end or that, if they want something from us, we can open up our toolbox and say, okay, let's see what we can do to help you or our community and have a win-win. But we'd have to look through the whole toolbox to see what things would be available, and only if they were asking for something in exchange. Otherwise, they're building to a price point.
Got it, and I think that, thank you, because what you just did gelled in my head. Affordability is relative to the area that it's in. As again, as a council member, I'm great at cybersecurity. That's what I do for a business, but I'm learning all this for the first time here in my second year, and this is something new for Mesquite District, because now there's the middle housing that the state has voted to put upon cities. We have to provide middle housing in certain parts of town. So I'm just trying to envision, as we're planning to do things really well in North Peoria, how do we include affordability? And that actually just said affordability in Mesquite may be $500,000 as an example. But then that's affordable for that, a group of maybe engineers moving in here from somewhere else to work at one of the TSMC or AMCOR, and that keeps them in that area so they don't go and take the housing at the next level down based on what you're saying. Okay, thank you. That makes sense now. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Stokes?
Hi, Chris. So reaching back into part of your conversation where you mentioned bringing in a home on wheels, or I would say a modular, or maybe even a prefab type of home, is that correct?
Yeah.
Typically, when people are looking for those, it's an individual that has a piece of property that's looking at potentially using that somewhere, maybe even for a plot of land up north as a cabin or something like that. So if we're talking about that as an infill or a tool here in Peoria, would that be something where the city is taking on that as where we zone a plot of land? Or are we going to go through a developer or do a collaboration? How would that look?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Stokes, it really just depends. You know, it starts with so infill is a big one. It could be a larger scale infill. We've seen a developer wants to do a small subdivision, almost akin to like the micro homes, but it's a quicker to build, cheaper to build, manufactured. If they own the site, they can do it. Again, it comes back to, are they wanting something from the city? And if so, how can we contribute? If it's a project, we own a site, say if we land bank something that's not an infill, or even if it is infill, these are all opportunities to address. So it can come from the market, it can come from within.
Okay, so extending from that, then if the city was doing part of that, then would it be something we're selling, or it would be a rent-to-own option, or what would that look like? Do we have any idea?
Vice Mayor, well, yes, Councilmember Stokes, it really just depends on the project, right?
Okay.
So if we're the ones driving it, we can have a lot more control over that. If it's a project coming to the city, again, asking for something, we'd huddle up and say, okay, what are the options here? Where's our deficit? What's your price point? There's just a lot of questions to be asked before we could really delve that. But what I tried to outlay is just an enormous amount of opportunities and tools that we could solicit to, if it's a worthwhile endeavor, we can find a way to make it happen.
Thank you.
Council members? Yes, Councilmember Crawford?
Thank you. I really like all of these tools that you have presented. Our city is so diverse, from, the south, middle, and, central up to the north, that is, a lot of it's not developed yet. So I believe a diversified strategy would be the most effective. So knowing that these would all come before council anyway, they wouldn't be rubber stamped. So I'm actually in favor of all of them. It's a menu of options to expedite our housing stock. One question is, I believe that we are working with We Serve, the West and Southeast Valley Realtors Association, who recently did or is in process of doing a housing study as well. Have we been working with them, exchanging data to date?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Crawford, I have not heard
Okay.
of that, no.
Okay, great.
We're
I'll-
happy to work with anybody, but if you
Yep,
have a
absolutely.
connection.
More data, the better. So I'll make sure that I connect you.
Council members, any other comments or questions? I had one. I agree with both Councilmember Crawford and Councilmember Bullock on their comments about the locations. I think infill is really kind of the way to go, but keeping the toolbox open, in my opinion, and looking at it from a diversified approach is a prudent way to go. I did have one question, though. You mentioned reduced fees that could be passed along to help control some of the costs. Would there be anything in place in your mind as you picture this that we would ensure that would get passed on and not be profit to the builder? Would there be something that they would have to show if we did that?
Vice Mayor, Council, it becomes a negotiated. Ultimately, it depends on what we're trying to achieve. So different income levels will have different outcomes. If it was affordable, it would be a set aside that you need to deliver X number of units that meet this income threshold. If it's a higher end, it may be a different tool that we're exchanging. So, but it would be all part of that stipulation within the PAD or other document that's legally binding both parties.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if have no further discussion, being no further business, I hereby declare this study session adjourned. To the Peoria City Council meeting, I hereby call this meeting on June 2nd, 2026 to order. Those who are able, please stand for the invocation by Bishop Kent Anderson from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance after.
Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful to be able to gather in this setting this evening. We're grateful for the inspired principles of government that permit us to gather and to be heard and to have a say and participate in our government. We're grateful for the efforts of our city council members to represent us, to understand the complex principles and workings of our communities. We're grateful for those who have perspectives and concerns for their willingness to gather tonight. We pray that thy Spirit will abide with us in this meeting, that we can communicate our ideas effectively, that we can understand what is said, that we will take the time to listen. We pray that the topics that will be discussed here will be effective, that our community can continue to move forward. And these things we pray in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Okay. I think it went swimmingly. Clerk, would you please call the roll, and I'll turn this back over to Mayor Beck after the roll.
Mayor Beck? Here. Vice Mayor Finn?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bullock?
Here.
Councilmember Stokes?
Here.
Councilmember Dunn?
Here.
Councilmember Edwards?
Here.
Councilmember Crawford?
Here.
You have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. Let's see here. Give me 1 second, just get through this. Pretty simple. We'll now move on to the regular meeting consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda will be routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion unless a request for removal has been received for prior approval. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion, Mayor.
Second.
Second. Thank you. I have a first and second. Please vote. And it passes 7-0. Thank you. We'll now move on to regular agenda to introduce new business. I now recognize City Manager, Mr. Mike Faust, to introduce a presentation on 17R.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, Director of Planning and Community Development, Chris Jaquez, will present item 17R for discussion and possible action to reverse a May 7th, 2026 decision from the Planning and Zoning Commission denying a conditional use permit for a proposed 70-foot tall wireless communications facility within the Foothills Center Recreation Facility located at 31642 North Westland Road. With that, Chris, please.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Faust. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I know we have a lot of interest on this case this evening, so I'm going to try to be brief tonight. I'm going to focus on the appeal. our level of authority that we have in these cases, and the public comment we have received since the commission decision. So 17R, this is an appeal pertaining to the Planning and Zoning Commission's decision to deny a conditional use permit for a proposed wireless facility at the Foothills Center in Vistancia. Now, we don't receive too many of these appeals. Typically, as you're all aware, the commission makes a recommendation on a land use matter. The recommendation comes forward to council. Council takes the final action. On CUPs, it's a little different in that they are authorized to make a decision, and when there is an appeal, the appeal is adjudicated by the city council. Now, the commission heard this request on May 7th. Staff recommended approval, and the commission ultimately voted 3-1 to deny the CUP. The applicant, Declan Murphy of Coal Creek Consultant, then filed a valid appeal, which brings the matter before you tonight. So here is the site in context. The Foothills Recreation Center is an HOA-owned facility that includes a pool, playground, and trail. The proposed tower, this is a 70-foot stealth tower design within the existing recreation facility area. So if you look at the graphic on the left, this is an approximate rendering of the tower structure design. So it's intended to match the color and materials that are present on site. The graphic on the right depicts the proposed location of the cell tower and the equipment area as well. Now, the nearest residential property is approximately 206 feet away, which exceeds the minimum 77-foot setback requirement in the zoning ordinance. Before we get into the appeal, I would just want to spend a few moments on the legal framework, because the legal framework weighs heavily on what we can consider and not consider in our evaluation of the conditional use permit. So we had a large and long commission meeting a few weeks ago. I trust you've all had the opportunity to watch the commission meeting. At that hearing, staff provided an overview of the federal communications framework. It is a complex, highly layered system. In this area, local jurisdictions have very limited discretion. So let me briefly summarize the key points most relevant to council's decision tonight. So federal law, and we're talking about the Telecommunications Act and FCC orders and regulations, they significantly limit the local authority. When we speak about RF emissions and health impact concerns, these cannot be a basis for denial if a facility meets FCC emission standards. Property values also cannot be used as a basis for approval or denial. Network design and coverage needs are determined by the carrier, not the city. We cannot require alternate tower spacing or different locations. And finally, aesthetics. They can be considered, but only under objective, reasonable, and pre-established standards that are not overly burdensome in effect. Now, because of these constraints, the city's review is focused on compliance with adopted conditional use permit criteria and zoning and development standards, including the allowed height, the required setbacks, the aesthetic treatment of the facility, and other objective wireless facility standards. Finally, federal law allows applicant to seek judicial review if a denial is based on preempted criteria or lacks substantial evidence. This is why grounding our decisions in objective adopted standards is essential in cases like this. Now, at the commission hearing, 8 members of the public spoke, 5 spoke in opposition, and 3 spoke in support. The commission ultimately voted 3-1 to deny this conditional use permit. Commissioners raised concerns about the tower's proximity to the amenity area, the potential visual impacts, particularly those that had been in the area prior to the proposal of the facility, and whether it could be located elsewhere. And in that vein, they were talking about elsewhere within the site or on externally on sites within the area. Now, staff's analysis focused on the city's objective CUP criteria and the relevant zoning requirements. So when we talk about those, there was a stealth design. It was provided. This was a design that was accepted by the HOA and with colored materials to match existing structures on site. When we look at the height, the code allows up to 80 feet. The proposal is for a 70-foot cell tower. When we talk about the minimum residential setback, it is a function of the height of the tower. So it's 110% of the tower. So the minimum setback was 77 feet. In this case, proposal allows for 206 feet. So it meets the residential setback standard. And then when we think about the enclosure size, there is no maximum enclosure size established for a CUP. In this case, the proposal happens to be 1,000 square feet. So based on these objective standards, staff determined the application met all applicable requirements. Now, since the commission hearing, we've received an additional 185 emails of individuals from the public. So as of June 1, so this is as of last night, so after the publication of the council packet, we've received an additional 170 emails in support of the cell tower. So that'd be 174 total that have been received. We've received 11 additional emails in opposition, or 18 total overall. And then we received 4 emails. There wasn't a clear position that was stated in those. Now, supporters of the cell tower often most cited significant coverage gaps and public safety communication needs. Opponents raised concerns about visual impacts, health issues, and a desire to relocate the facility to other sites in the area. Now, turning to the applicant's basis of appeal, this is Exhibit A in your council packet. The appellant's position is that the CUP fully meets all of the city's objective criteria, and that the commission's denial was based largely on speculative or unsupported assumptions about potential alternative sites. They also argue that the decision is inconsistent with federal telecommunications law, as well as with prior cases where similar facilities were approved under the same standards. In their view, the record does not contain substantial evidence to support a denial under the applicable criteria. Finally, the appeal further states that the commission relied on generalized concerns and speculative alternatives rather than objective findings grounded in the city's adopted requirements. For those reasons, the applicant is asking council to reverse the denial. Now, council has 4 options tonight. You could vote to affirm the denial, uphold the denial of the commission. You could vote to reverse the denial. You could also vote to reverse a denial with stated modifications to that, or you can vote to continue the matter with the applicant's consent. And that's key, the applicant's consent, because under telecommunications law, we are operating under a shot clock, meaning we have to make a decision on the conditional use permit and the subsequent permit within a 150-day time frame. Now, the time frame can be told when we have requests for information or things like that. We're waiting for a resubmittal, but there isn't a lot of time in place to make that final decision. Now, staff's role in this process is to evaluate the application against the city's adopted objective design standards and within the framework of federal telecommunication regulations. Now, based on that review, staff found the appeal to be meritorious, and it determined that the proposal meets all applicable requirements. Hence, the staff recommendation tonight is to reverse the commission's denial and approve the conditional use permit subject to the conditions outlined in Exhibit C. In closing, I do want to say a few things, though. I mean, these are tough cases. We've had a number of tough cases over the years. We understand that this request has generated strong perspectives, both in support and in opposition. However this goes, we certainly respect and appreciate the thoughtful engagement from the community. We've heard from both sides. And with that, I'm available for any questions the council may have. Also, I note that the applicant, Declan Murphy, is also available for questions. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chris. So since this project is in my district, I feel it's to my fellow council members, and we do this with each other, that I want to bring some knowledge, some data points that I have worked on for the last year in this project for the betterment and the information from my fellow council members as they determine how they're going to vote. So I put a couple bullet points here. I'm just going to go through them kind of quickly. It's basically 3 different points. So I'm going to usurp the question time for a statement. So, not that would surprise you, right? So, a couple of things I wanted to go over is that, and I really broke it down into 3 different points, is that the first one's location. And I got to be careful because this particular appeal is based on a specific location, exact specific location, specific look, specific height, specific everything. And that's what's critical. And I had to learn this too. I mean, this is a lot of new stuff for me, that you can't bring a lot of other information in. If down the road something else is proposed, great, but we're voting on a specific location. And it's interesting is that a little bit of history, this project actually started in 2021. So it's not something that just came about. It was actually started by Andrew Messing, who is from Tower Asset Group, who's actually would be the builder, and then worked with Declan Murphy, who's the consulting company on the project. And they actually sat down with a group of residents in Vistancia. They sat down with the HOA board at the time, the 2021 board, and the Architectural Review Committee to review a couple different locations. Of course, that's standard par for the course. You look at other locations. And it's interesting is that location per se is not dictated by what a resident or residents want on either side. It's really dictated by what the cell phone carrier wants to do. And what I mean by that is, I saw originally, basically, and I call a scatter diagram for lack of a better word or a better term, where you could see, and this is from AT&T, they set a map of Vistancia, and they said, here's where our current customers are, kind of blotted all over, and here's where we expect the future growth to be with North Point and Saddleback and whatnot. And they said, in order for it to be a good financial investment, and yes, it is a business because we pay for cell service, and they are a for-profit company, of course they are. They said, we want to be able to have it in this specific location because it meets our current needs for saturation of a signal and meets the need for future growth. Seemed very, very regular to me. So, and interestingly is that in 2023, this project actually came to a halt. And I read multiple things online over the last year because I started work on this project, actually June of last year. It's been a whole year already, can't believe that. There was some words I got from residents saying, well, it was pushback from the residents stopped the project. Come to find out is that the project was stopped in 2023 because AT&T, who is the primary lessee on the tower, actually was going through some restructuring unrelated to Arizona. It was a Southwest office restructuring, and they put all their cell towers on hold in basically the Northwest Valley and Maricopa and Surprise and everything, even the Southwest Valley. That's what happens. It sat dormant for 2 full years. So again, about a year ago, when I worked with the HOA, reached out to Tower Asset Group, reached out to Chris as well, and a group of residents who worked with me, a few of them I see in the audience tonight, and we worked to resurrect the project for the simple reason that cell service was something that was bad back in 2021, and we needed to do something for it. So that's where this whole process actually started. Interesting to note also, when it comes to location, I received a lot of emails from residents, and I appreciate all views. I really do, because everybody has to learn, we all learn, I have to learn, but a lot of them were, well, put it down the street, or put it out in the desert, put it up on a hill somewhere. That might be great, but again, it is dictated by what Chris said as well, there's code, of course, but the cell phone companies, in this case, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, who are the 3 lessees on the tower, at least at this point, they're the ones who dictate the specific location. As a matter of fact, and this, this probably sounds like a threat, it's not, Verizon actually reached out to Andrew Messing, again, who's the company who will be building the tower if approved, and they basically said, we have set aside the money for this particular project, again, it's just a business decision, in this specific location, and it has to be finished by the end of 2026. And if it doesn't get finished by the end of 2026, we are being pulled the funding and move on to other cities where we have other projects. Of course, it's just a business, and we will not be able to revisit this until 2028 from a Verizon point of view. So again, just not a threat, that was just what they told Andrew as well. So that's why what we're voting on tonight is this specific location. Second thing is what I call the rule of law. My second point, I have to remember that this is private property owned by the residents of Estancia through your HOA. The city does not own property that cell towers can go on. As a matter of fact, mentioned in 2017, the city passed an ordinance where no cell towers can be built on city property since 2017. Can't be bolted on top of a fire station, can't be put on top of a pool area, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can't put, if the city owned a pool, you can't put it anywhere in city property. It has to be on private property. This was voted on by a duly elected board who had the authority to sell a piece of private property owned by the residents of Estancia. And they can work the deal any way they want as long as it's legal. So I approached the board last July and I said, I need you guys to vote on this because I want to know that everything is ready to go and you've got the vote from the board. Well, they said, hey, Matt, we voted in 2023. I said, I'm sorry, I need you to do a new vote. Winning friends and influencing people already. So I said, I need you to meet again and do another public vote, which they did. It came back unanimous. So they said, here you go, Matt, let's submit the application. I said, sorry, I need one more thing. I want your attorney to send me a letter that certifies that the vote was done in accordance with your CC&Rs, your HOA regulations, and I want that letter to be attached to your vote, your attestation that you voted, and then put that with the application. So I want to make sure another vote was done, and I want to make sure the attorney, the HOA board's attorney, needs signed off on it. I thought that was important, maybe for me, to make sure that everything was done correctly before it was submitted. The last thing I want to talk about is precedent. If you look at the only existing cell tower in Vistancia about 15-ish years ago when that was actually built, there's actually only one tower, which is funny because I actually call Vistancia, and I say this lovingly, the country of Vistancia, because it's so large and getting larger. It's had one tower for the past 15-ish years. And so what's interesting is that if you go look at where the tower is now, it's at the Mountain Vista Clubhouse and Pool area. And it's easy to see on a map, and I know a lot of my fellow council members, and I appreciate them making the effort. I've driven up there to take a look at it. But that tower actually sits right next to the clubhouse, sits right next to the administrative offices. It sits right next to the gymnasium and basketball court indoor. Matter of fact, it's attached to that building. It's about 70, 75 feet. I paced it off, but roughly 70, 75 feet away from the pool area. What we're asking and what the applicant is trying to do with the appeal is saying, we're going to be doing the exact same thing up at the Foothills Center up in North Peoria. It's going to be right next to the pool and clubhouse area. It's going to be in a park area. It's going to be exactly the same. It's going to actually be not quite as wide as the one that's up at the Mountain Vista Clubhouse right now, but precedent has been set. I've heard emails about a school being very close. I get that. The one in Mountain Vista Clubhouse that's been there for about 15 years is less than 300 yards. I kind of paced it off, but close enough, to Vistancia Elementary. This particular tower is going to be built about 150 yards, plus or minus 200 yards, less than 200 yards from Lake Pleasant Elementary. So precedent has been set. That's why I kept going forward with this and kept working on the project, is because in my mind, I have to vote on two things, logic and law. Whether you agree with me or not, I have to vote logic and law. I believe the homework has been done. I believe that all the boxes have been checked to meet that requirement because it's been a whole year-long project. So again, I would make your decision any way you want, but I want to give you an idea of the project and what I've been doing over the past year with residents in the HOA and kind of how we got where we are today. So there's my minute. So thank you very much, Mayor.
Just for the record, Matt, I think that was more than a minute. I know. I had a couple of things that I wanted to just mention. I had an opportunity to see all the emails that had come through, both for and against. And the thing that stuck out to me the most was the public safety aspect of this. And the fact that I believe we have verification. We've had drop 911 calls and people that can't make that emergency services call. 22% of families in America still have a landline, but that leaves 78% that don't. And some of those that have a landline probably don't use it. Like my mother just wants to keep a landline because she wants to keep a landline. She never uses it. But to not have access to emergency services and be able to call 911, in my mind, is just not, it's not acceptable. And it has to get fixed. And having one tower, to Councilman Bullock's point, having one tower in Vistancia, it seems like we might have missed an opportunity somewhere, whether it's the developers, what have you. I feel we should be much better and moving forward, especially in the PIC. We know exactly what's going to be happening in the PIC. We should be figuring out where cell phone towers are going to be in advance and get them and get the coverage. So that's my 3 minutes. Thank you, Mayor.
We will now open to the public hearing for item 17R. Do we have any members of the public? And I have a list that we will go down this list, actually. Just before we go down, I'm like, wait a minute, there's a list. We will start with Janet Abernathy. You're like the first one, right? Sorry. Do you want me to call on somebody else to come back? No.
Sorry.
It's all good.
My name is Janet Abernathy. I've lived in Trilogy for almost 6 years. I'm originally from Illinois, where I worked for the Village of Mount Prospect for 39 years. One time. My father was on their planning and zoning board, both directly and through my dad. I know how planning and zoning commissions work. I'm here to give my view of the denial, and I pray that you are going to overturn it. In the past couple of years, I have seen deterioration in our service with our cell phones. This spring, I had some health issues where my phone was extremely important to me. Phone calls from my medical team continuously did not come through to my phone. I'd be sitting with it in my hand. It wouldn't come through. When I actually finally got through to them, or they got through to me, I kept getting the calls dropped. This compromised my communication with my doctors when I needed it most. It was a very frightening time for me and continues to be so. I just don't understand how the commission could have turned this down. As you know, our area of Peoria is exploding with new builds. Cell towers are going to be needed. They're needed now, they're going to keep being needed. We need more. We are in an area where the concentration of children and adults is extremely high. We have neighborhoods, schools, and active adult communities. For the safety of thousands of residents, please, I ask you to overturn this. The site meets zoning codes, and my understanding is the commission was told not to use subjective opinion in placing their vote. It appears this is exactly what they did. For the safety, please overturn it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. David Israel.
Mayor Beck and honored city council members. My name is David Israel. I've lived in Peoria for 3.5 years. My home is in the Trilogy community. My wife Audrey and I moved here in late '22 from the greater Seattle area, a very beautiful but densely populated metropolitan area. One reason we moved to Arizona, besides the abundant sunshine, which was conspicuously missing from the Northwest, was for the opportunity to move to a newer community, less crowded than what we had grown accustomed to, but was still growing and welcoming new residents looking for a different environment. We found that in Trilogy and more broadly in Peoria. A community providing needed services, entertainment and restaurants, retail, professional services, and healthcare, most critically. We joke with each other that our neighbors seem to face medical challenges and emergencies on a frequent basis. Not unexpected living in a community with many retirees. Luckily, we haven't faced any medical emergencies ourselves, but we have friends and neighbors who have faced these issues regularly. This is a situation, among many others, which requires cell phone coverage to be as reliable as possible. As our community's population has grown and housing continues to grow north from Lone Mountain Boulevard and elsewhere in the Vistancia area, we need to have as close to fail-safe cell coverage as possible. That's become more critical. Sure, there are some arguments that cell phones have negative medical effects, but the American Cancer Society, while not having an official position on whether or not RF radiation is a cause of cancer, does cite other expert organizations and federal government agencies which have found no clear link between exposure to cell towers and cancer diagnoses. I urge you to consider our growing community and the infrastructure being stretched to beyond its capacity and approve the suggested location for the new cell tower in Vistancia. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, sir. Cheryl Remington.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Remington. I'm here tonight to plead with you to vote with the Planning and Zoning Commissioners and deny the conditional use permit at the Foothills Pool. We have been forced to plead our case with council members from other districts, and we appreciate your time. This will be an eyesore in our neighborhood. Our houses, the largest investment we will ever make, will be unsellable. Our HOA has known of the opposition to this site for years, so much so that they totally dropped the idea 2 years ago. If safety is now the reason for needing this tower, and they knew of the strong opposition, why were they not searching more acceptable locations? For those that want to blame the opposition and delay in getting a tower on homeowners, I'd like to direct that back to our HOA board that did nothing to help have a study done of other sites and or coverage areas. They forced through this site and this design saying it's the perfect site with no proof of that. Would you buy my home? I have view fencing. If there were 100 other homes for sale, the developer knows new home lots would never sell near a tower, but has chosen our backyards for the tower instead of placing it in a new community. The Planning and Zoning Commissioners were the first to recognize our concern. They looked at this location and determined homeowners bought with the idea this land would never have anything else other than a recreation area and a beautiful desert surrounding on it. It's not commercial property, and it's not a vacant lot. My understanding of stealth cell towers are they should blend in. What is stealth about a 70-foot elevator shaft amongst homes in recreation areas? I'll ask you again, imagine this is your home. Noise is a big concern. Would you want to relax in your backyard or community pool and listen to a constant hum, which gets louder with every carrier added, and if a problem arises and the generator turns on, is even louder? 24/7, no break. Imagine having a backyard barbecue. You have tower maintenance people looking down at you. We lose all privacy in our backyards. Maintenance is done on these towers 24/7 if they go down. Homeowners impacted by this tower ask you to uphold the denial of the tower's conditional use permit. Conditional use permits recognize the impact of the surrounding properties and the impact of quality of life. I know that there is pressure on you to approve this, but please look at the lack of planning and the easy route taken without any consideration of homeowners. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Ms. Doreen Power, sorry.
My name is Doreen Power, and I live in Vistancia. Cell service is more than a convenience, but it's a necessity for our livelihood and most importantly for emergencies. I think we can all agree on that. The issue is where to build it, and unfortunately, that should have been planned before thousands of homes were built. Because it wasn't, we are left with limited options, none of them perfect, and delaying any further puts our growing community at risk. This is a recurring problem where massive planned communities are approved without the necessary infrastructure and services, including water, roads, traffic lights, cell service, fire, and schools. These should have designated locations before development begins. When planning is not done up front, it creates a cycle where citizens are left fighting the city, developers, HOAs, service providers, and even fighting each other. This is not how a well-run city should function. This location may not be perfect. I don't think it's perfect, but it meets zoning codes. Other sites will have similar issues, and continuing to delay is dangerous. As an example, I will share a comment that a neighbor living on 133rd Lane, just 2 to 3 blocks from the tower location, asked me to share. Michelle Kemper is the sole caretaker for her husband, who is a double amputee and in a wheelchair. Michelle says, and I quote, "As a homeowner in Vistancia, I expect the water to come on when I turn the tap, the lights to come on when I flip the switch, and a 911 call to go through where I place a call. I have 2 of these services, but not cell coverage. My family had the misfortune to need emergency aid 3 times in the last 36 months, and my desperate 911 calls were repeatedly dropped mid-call. So, Despite being in close proximity to her home, Michelle fully supports this tower at Foothills Center. Another friend of mine tried 11 times to reach 911 when the house next to hers caught on fire in the middle of the night. Can you imagine how frightening that was? Some say the answer is to get a landline, a booster, or Starlink, but those don't provide coverage outside your home, such as when you're walking, even when you're driving, when your children are walking home from school. Other technology may be coming, but it is not here yet. If you don't have another option that will not delay coverage now, please vote yes. If zoning codes, such as setbacks for cell towers, need to be increased, which I believe they do, then change them. But for now, this location meets codes and must be built. I would not want a death on my conscience due to further delay, and I know you don't either. In the future, the city and developers must strategically work together to ensure infrastructure is planned before a crisis where residents are forced to fight because of lack of planning or negligence. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Ray Remington?
Good evening. I'm Ray Remington. I'm here to point out that no other solutions have ever been studied to provide cell coverage to Village A homeowners, such as enhancements to the existing tower, a small cell repeating towers on streetlights around Vistancia to give more uniform coverage, or possibly buying property for the cell tower to sit on, which the cell tower rent would pay for the land bought. No one has contacted commercial property owners to see if they would pursue a tower on their property. A 70-foot tower does not belong near a recreational area and close proximity to homeowners with view fencing. The tower is not stealth and does not even begin to blend in. We need a better solution. The existing cell tower is only a mile from the new proposed tower as the crow flies, yet it is promoted as the solution to all cell service gaps. Does this mean we need a cell tower every mile? If that's the case due to terrain, let's look at small cell tower repeaters on light poles throughout the community for more uniform coverage. This is a 25-year commitment with lots of consequences for homeowners located next to it. Shouldn't all options be considered? This tower is being presented as the fix to cell tower service gaps with no study done. That way they get more people in favor of it to push it through. Other less intrusive options need to be looked at. People explore the options where there is no opposition to the tower. Let's explore the oppositions to where there's no exceptions to the tower. Please uphold the denial and conditional use permit, and let's all work as a team to get a less intrusive option. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Linda Simpson?
Mayor Beck and esteemed council members, good evening. My name is Linda Simpson. I live in Vistancia. First, to start off, I would like to thank Councilmember Crawford and Councilmember Edwards. I know you received a lot of emails. All of the council members did, as well as the mayor. I just wanted to let you know I appreciate, and I've heard from many other people, appreciated your response, just acknowledging that you were hearing us. So, and I know that that's what tonight is about, so I definitely appreciate that. I'm here to speak and share my strong support for the appeal and for moving forward with what staff members have put forth to you regarding the 17R on the agenda. It's clear based on this 350 some odd page report that was prepared for the appeal meeting tonight and the previous lengthy report that was prepared for the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on May 7th, that the application submitted to both groups adheres to all of the city requirements for approval, and that was why the city staff members suggested and moved it forward for approval both previously and tonight. The Federal Telecommunications Act, as we heard earlier, of 1996 and the subsequent FCC orders evaluate telecommunications as an essential infrastructure, which I think we're all hearing. And as a result, it clearly states that local jurisdictions cannot base decisions for non-approval of wireless communication facilities on radio frequency emissions, aesthetics, perceived property value, impacts, or general community opposition. The city's planned community development standards allow for wireless communication facilities up to 80 feet with a minimum setback of 110% of the height, along with some aesthetic design requirements. All of these have been met in each of the documents in the request for the permit. The city really has no basis to deny this application, and the immediate need for reliable cell service is something you're hearing over and over again. I understand the commissions are made up of very well-meaning volunteers who strive to do their best. However, in this case, only 4 of 7 members were at the meeting, and 3 of them voted to deny an application that meets all applicable laws and city standards. It was beyond their purview to be able to do that. So I'm glad the process works, the appeal process works, and is able to move forward. So it's a good thing. I do believe the City Council can help support the Planning and Zoning Commission further, though, by creating requirements in the City Code for developers to include accommodation for the WCFs within the pad developments when submitting permits. The gentleman who was talking about the housing toolbox and things that could be done, one of those is changing and modifying zoning requirements as we need it. In Mesquite, it's the rapidly growing area. This is going to come at you multiple times. A second tower when we need 5. This is going to be on your desk in another month or 2 from now. Why not ask the developers to put in place in their plan where the cell towers should be so that homeowners aren't fighting against each other, they're not fighting against you, it's designed ahead of time and people are purchasing their homes with that in mind. I would request that you follow your staff's recommendations. I think it's been thoroughly vetted, well discussed, and move to approve this. So thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Mike McHorse.
Good evening. Mike McHorse. I'm speaking in opposition of the tower. I can't talk about health concerns or real estate values, but I also provided those to P&Z in the last deal. What I will talk about is lack of comprehensive cell phone tower study. I've heard it over and over again that there was comprehensive studies. I've requested, and so has many of the other residents, copies of the studies. Nobody can provide them. Per an email exchange with our HOA executive director, the only property considered for the next Greater Vistancia area was the Foothills Recreation Center. Per an email exchange with our city council member, Matt, the cell phone tower companies pretty much dictate, and you mentioned that earlier, where the location goes. While requests were submitted for additional study documentation, including Matt asking Tower Group to send me information, they did not, and nobody has provided that. So who's actually making the decisions? Supposedly a committee that included Vistancia Village A residents reviewed location options, yet the HOA board refuses to provide us a list of the residents that were on that committee. And as far as I can tell, there was nobody that was in the quarter-mile impact zone. At the conclusion of the P&Z hearing, an HOA board member advised a group of us that the Vistancia Village A declarant, Mr. Mark Hammonds, was still involved in decision-making process. If that is true, this would be a violation of Arizona Statute 33-1820, titled Declarant Control. And if you know that study, that basically, or that statute, says that you can only, once 2 lots are available in a community, the declarant has to step away. Let me talk about the proposed cell tower location scoreboard. This is interesting. Blackstone, 0. Trilogy, 0. North Point, 0. Mystic, 0. Serrano, 0. The Future Saddleback and 5 North. Vistancia Village A, they want to put 2. We already took a hit on one, now they want us to take a hit on another one. Why? Whether it's the question of the Planning and Zoning Council or the City Council, why is the developer being allowed to begin building new communities without contracting for cell phone tower to serve them? My guess that it makes it more difficult to sell those homes. I'll close by requesting that you uphold the Planning and Zoning Commission denial of the tower's conditional use permit. And again, I can't emphasize enough, we've asked for these studies. Matt, you mentioned a concentric circle study that shows where the towers are going to feed the community. They don't provide them. Nobody's provided them. We have no idea. As far as I can tell, Verizon and AT&T went to the HOA board and they said, we got a great place for it and we'll take the money and put it in a beautiful recreation center that has view lots. So again, I can't emphasize enough. Please research that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, sir. Steve Smith.
Good evening to Mayor Beck and council members. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. I'll start off by saying that I believe that the Planning and Zoning Committee did and made their decision based on several of the city codes. I live in Vista. My home is about 210 feet from this proposed tower. And you've heard several people say tonight that this type of planning should be done prior to anything being built, and I strongly suggest that you do that going forward. So you don't have the divisiveness that you have here tonight. The land developer, the carriers, the builders should all be held, and they should be, sites should be determined well in advance of any homes being built so you don't wind up in this position again. Councilman Bullock, you mentioned that the HOA gave you a letter from the attorney that states that there was a vote taken. When that vote was taken, I don't know. I've been at my location since 2019. I saw a survey that was taken back in 2023 asking if we needed cell service, and we desperately do need cell service, but I don't think that this has been handled appropriately. There are several city council ordinances relating to this issue that I think are not followed by the applicant. One of them is 21-330, which states that the 70-foot tower is compatible with the existing and planned character of the surrounding area, which includes a public recreation facility, pedestrian-oriented amenities, and adjacent single-family homes. There's another one which is 21-115, it's the city code, that applicants must avoid locations adjacent to sensitive land uses where feasible. Sensitive use includes pools, playgrounds, and residential areas. Because we put it in one area that had those doesn't mean that we need to duplicate that mistake. The applicant did not provide sufficient technical evidence to establish a significant coverage gap. We've never seen any reports. We've always been told that you can't put it and just take a dot and put it on a map and decide where it could be, but we've never seen any reports that say what the applicant did to substantiate that. I request that you require the applicant to find locations that are suitable, that do meet all the requirements. Again, we need desperately to have cell service, but there is a quote in a movie that says, if you build it, they will come. If you build this, I'm very afraid of what might come. So I beg you to, again, look at other possibilities for this cell service and to support what was done by your planning commission. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, sir. Susan Smith.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm going to jump over and go right to the meat tonight. I am going to respectfully submit to you 3 compelling reasons that demonstrate why the denial from the P&Z should be upheld. First one is actually a rebuttal. the failure to meet mandatory fall zone safety requirements. As you saw on the overhead that Chris provided to us, he showed 206 to the residential, to my home including, that was from that to the cell tower. But what you didn't see on that, guys, is the playground. It's 53 feet. I walked it out. Okay, what is it to the pool house? 76. So when we say 110%, which is 77 feet, that is all around. It's perpendicular. It's not just north and west and to the residential. Okay, I have read that code inside and out, so I humbly ask that the committee go back and ask to see in a perpendicular motion to the playground, to the pool house, and also to the cars that are parked in front of this. I know we are keeping one spot in front of but how about all the other cars? We have the Vistancia Vipers and their families that are there. The parking lot is filled. The Discovery Trail. Everything that I'm sharing with you overlaps. And I have seen no one put it up there, nor has the applicant shared anything that I've read online that supports that actually has been meant. So I'm going to say this, that a variance, as far as I can tell, again, I'm not the guru here, a mechanism to deviate from the standard under ARS 9-462.06H is a variance can only be granted if these three conditions. The condition is unique to the property, the hardship is not self-created, and the variance will not be detrimental to the nearby persons or the properties. This proposal actually meets none of those criteria. The parcel is just really simply too small for a tower this size. The hardship is self-created by the applicant because for 5 years we opposed as a community. We pushed back. We said, where are your alternative sites? Show it to us. And as you've heard, nothing has come. This is the site that they want. This is the site they're going to bully us into accepting. Okay, so this is why we're here. The reduced setback clearly places people and property at risk. So what I'm asking is for you to gain additional information from your applicant and see if there are other viable alternatives that actually exist. The federal law does state that they don't expect the local municipality to be required to approve a non-compliant or an unsafe site, even if all the other matters are met. Two other things I don't have time to go over, so I'm going to end it there. And thank you again for your time and your consideration, and I hope you will uphold the P&Z.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Rick Eckenrode.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Peoria City Council members and Mayor Beck, and congratulations, for prioritizing and including the CUP appeal for the much-needed Foothills Rec Center facility, WCF, on tonight's agenda. While attending the P&Z Commission public hearing on May 7th, I listened intently as Peoria City staff gave clear-cut instructions to the 4 of 7 committee members in attendance that included what criteria can and cannot be considered as directed by the federal government, that the P&Z participated in a prior training class of WCFs, and all City of Peoria zoning guidelines were met in the application. City staff's recommendation was to approve the CUP. It was here that I heard the term expedited judicial review along with a detailed explanation of it. I certainly appreciate all forms of volunteerism to the city and appreciate the time the P&Z committee gives to making Peoria a better place. However, the city staff recommendation to approve was ignored, along with specific detailed instructions on criteria consideration were ignored. As a resident of the far northwest part of the Vistancia, I unfortunately must endure the same undependable or non-existent cell phone coverage other residents in the area have expressed to this body in large numbers. As a frequent walker, some areas I pass through have no cell coverage, which highlights safety concerns should an emergency occur in a city street or on our many hiking trails. I was invited to attend the recent groundbreaking of the Peoria Fire Medical Station 198. There were many City of Peoria officials in attendance, some are here tonight, as well as contractor representatives. As this meeting proceeded, I was taken aback as to how many of you had no cell coverage where this station is currently under consideration. How do I know that? This is what you all were doing. Me too. Although this event lasted a few hours, imagine residents experiencing no cell phone coverage all day, every day. And now we know there's no cell coverage at the fire station. This area of North Peoria has grown immensely and continues to grow immensely. Services that residents depend on each and every day must grow along with that immense growth. Please accept the conditional use permit appeal, overturn the denial so this needed project can finally move forward. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Rich Hong.
Hello, I am reading from a paper fast because my wife tells me I talk too much and I only have 3 minutes. My name is Rich Wong and I support the cell tower being built in the current location. I have sent all of you a lengthy email outlining the need for the cell tower, why the current location is most optimal, and a little bit about myself and my fundamental credibility on the topic. However, hopefully you read my email and it was useful. Today I put a human face with the email so you don't think I'm just a keyboard warrior. I live in North Point, which is part of the overall Vistancia area. I love Peoria, I love Vistancia, I love North Point, I love my neighbors and community, which is why I'm here. After seeing both sides of the conversation and argument on the cell tower, it boils down to 3 things. Do we need a cell tower? What are the concerns with a cell tower? And can we do better? I can answer all 3. Do we need a cell tower? Everyone, including the opposition, agrees we need better cell service and coverage. It's the location. Point answered. Can we do better? Not really. The current location was selected based on a technical site survey by the infrastructure company that will build and deploy the cell tower and antennas. They consider all the physics of the terrain and the environment, federal and local rules like not having a cell tower on city-owned land, and pick the optimal location to provide service to the greatest number of subscribers in the most efficient way. Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile use these towers and don't want to lose customers and don't want complaints because of poor tower placement. The infrastructure companies that build the towers must do it right. Another point, there's already precedent set in Vistancia for a cell tower. The current tower is a community center already near a pool, near multiple parks and a school, and is built with architectural structure around it so it isn't ugly. We are duplicating that precedent. Can we do better? Like I said, not really. At the planning and zoning meeting, the opposition felt we can do better because representatives of the infrastructure company may have seemed disorganized. Well, if technical studies have been done, location selected, community outreach to the HOA, developer, and homeowners completed, and plans were agreed upon, and everything was ready to go, I guess I'd be taken off guard too. Can we do better? Like I said, I don't think so. What are the concerns with a cell tower? Technology will always have concerns. What changes is the time, understanding, and acceptance of that technology. When I was younger, my parents told me, don't sit too close to the TV or you'll go blind. Fast forward many years to today. We sit in front of computer monitors a few feet from our face for hours at a time. TVs are huge. We walk around with cell phones with built-in radio antennas that wirelessly connect to the world and keep those cell phones even in our pockets and on our body. Cell phones and cell towers have been around for many years. Which was once a luxury and new technology is now a necessity. The concern is valid, but to be honest, it's okay. We have achieved time, understanding, and acceptance of this technology. It's everywhere around us. Please vote yes to allow this cell tower to be built. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, sir. Teresa Murphy. Teresa Murphy. April McCormick.
Good evening. My name is April McCormick. I'm a resident of North Point. We keep hearing about precedents to approve this because the city approved antennas in the watchtower at the Mountain Vista Club in 2012, I believe. The watchtower was an existing building. The proposed site will be a new 6.5-story structure. The Mountain Vista building is twice as far away from the elementary school as the proposed site is, and something that gives me great concern and additional reason to pause is that according to the website antennasearch.com, the Mountain Vista Club has no registered antennas with the FCC. It seems to me that it was someone's job 14 years ago to tell the FCC what carrier antennas are located in the Mountain Vista Club, how many there are. You have to give the FCC coordinates of the site and produce an FCC filing. Being that the HOA now wants to build a 70-foot tower and co-locate 3 carriers there and doesn't seem to ever have registered their initial site with the FCC 14 years ago, this seems to be an FCC unlicensed circus free-for-all. Another interesting tidbit on antennasearch.com is that it says there's a registered 65-foot tower behind the Blackstone Country Club. It has an FCC filing and was reported to be built in 2009 and belonging to Verizon. What happened to that tower location? Blackstone residents didn't want it there, possibly? The problem we really have here is the site developer and Rick testified to the Planning Commission that they have not looked for alternative sites because in this very unique situation, the HOA's landscaping committee, not the carrier, picked the proposed site. This means the applicant cannot even meet the least intrusive means test, meaning they have looked for other sites that are least intrusive to the proposed site because they haven't looked for any other sites and didn't even pick out the proposed site, the HOA did. In addition, the least intrusive mean test not being met. Another reason you can deny this is based on aesthetic concerns, which are as big as the tower is. Across the canal from the proposed site is North Point. We're a mere 1/4 mile to a half mile away. These are petitions that were collected in 9 days from triple-digit residents that have given their address where the lion's share live within a half mile. In addition, there's another petition that was circulated in 2023 with a whopping 271 signatures. So I present to you this evening 382 residents that are firmly opposed to this and cannot believe the HOA is going to do this to them. Visit northpointsafetech.com for updates after this hearing. Thank you so much. Who do I deliver these to?
We'll take it.
Clerk?
We'll take it.
Thank
you,
you.
ma'am. Thank you for your comments. Just to make one comment as we continue. So people making comments about time, I'm giving both sides a little bit extra on this. It's not, no, you had it, ma'am. I appreciate your comments. But let's just be respectful to other people that actually have a passion around this as well, okay? Patrick Heisel.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Heisel. I live 5 houses away from the proposed cell phone site. About my background, I practiced contract law for more than 40 years and worked at GTE's world headquarters, which is now doing business as Verizon. The companies that built cell towers were hired by one of the subcontractors, one of the subcontract managers through my office. I'd like to repeat that. The companies that built the cell towers were hired by the people who worked in my office. By the way, the threat of stopping unless approvals are done, it's a negotiation ploy. I know Verizon. We're at a crossroads here with many angry and confused residents who've been misled or do not understand about the tower issues. Some people want a cell tower regardless of the impact on their neighbors, and others are in fear of the effect the tower will have on their property. For anyone who thinks there's no impact on nearby property, remember the three issues in real estate: location, location, location. We need a win-win situation, or a win-win solution to the problem. And it means that what I'm about to say is critical in making the right decision. How does one achieve corporate profit? By paying as little as possible for any item or activity. How does one lower costs in constructing a cell phone tower? Sure, you look at the population coverage and all the technical issues, but that is not the final decision. You build it where you have the easiest access to the site. You pay a company to design a tower and build it at the lowest cost. You find a vacant property where the road and utilities are already existing. Mountaintops are expensive because you need to put in a road for access. You need to run electric. Then you have the hassle of getting to and from the site for construction and maintenance. Do you care how it looks? Not really. If it functions as needed and costs remain low, that's all that matters. Now you have a better picture of why they chose the pool location and the design of the tower. The government states that there are no health issues, so we move on. There will be an impact on home values. Properties can be devalued by as much as 20% based upon location and design of the tower. If the design of the tower enhances the environment, it can also increase the value of the nearby homes. I submitted to you a sample of an improved tower design, and you should compare it with the proposed design. The current design of the tower is downright ugly. I have no other word to describe it, except it looks like a grain elevator that you'll find near a railroad track. The design is cheap and will be an eyesore that hurts the value of nearby homes. By improving the design, it becomes a win-win situation for everyone. The design of the tower is negotiable. Residents do not want the design that's submitted. A new tower typically costs between $150,000 to $1 million, with the average around $250,000. The proposed design is the cheapest structure beyond a skeletal frame. In closing, do what is right for all the homeowners in Vistancia. The design of the tower must be improved. Vistancia is not a farming community, so we don't want to look like one.
Thank you for your comment, sir.
Thank you.
David Rosen.
Hello, and good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and neighbors of Peoria. My name is David Rosen, and I reside in the Mesquite District. I am new to Arizona, only living here less than 2 years. When my family moved here to Vistancia, we loved the beauty and solitude of the Western Valley. I remember asking our realtor and agent in our subdivision about cell coverage, and were there any issues related to coverage? Back in November of 2024, we were told by many that a cell tower in the area was in the works. That was a big part of our decision, knowing for safety that we had coverage, as landlines are basically obsolete. Fast forward to June of 2026. I have followed and listened to the pros and cons on this issue. As someone who ran for city council in High Point, North Carolina about 14 years ago, I know all too well the position of each of you as city council members and mayor, and what you do is very daunting. I also learned that working together and listening to all sides and making objective decisions that are best for the constituents in the city is part of your responsibility. So here we are again, discussing what planning and zoning rejected. By the looks in this room, it's obvious that there are many people that have strong opinions on this matter. I have heard and listened to all the reasons why some residents don't want the tower, whether it's the location of the tower, the aesthetics, worrying about the property value, proximity to schools, and many more reasons. I understand all those concerns. With over 6,000 homes being built in the Western Valley and the growth of new people coming at a rapid speed, it is imperative that this council open their eyes to the true reality of each of us being able to reach loved ones, friends, and most importantly, 911. I'm speaking for many of us that have to end calls or not start calls as we drive to or from work. I can't tell you how many drop calls I've had along Lone Mountain, Estancia Boulevard, Happy Valley, and the 303. I am over it, along with many others. Now, I want you all to picture something. I want you all to get visual. I'm a photographer. I really want you to picture this. It's a beautiful Friday evening in the fall, and your son or daughter is at a friend's home in Estancia. You are unaware at the time, but there was an accident, and your loved one is trying desperately to call you. They are in trouble and possibly hurt. The night goes on, and they're trying to reach you, and you're trying to reach them, but they're unable to be reached. Around 11:30 that night, you get a knock on the door from our wonderful Peoria Police Department. They ask to come in your home. Your first thoughts are, what's going on? Is everything okay? The one officer says, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your daughter was in an accident. Your child was not able to reach you or 911, nor were you able to reach them because of lack of cell phone coverage. Mayor and members of City Council, the time to stop kicking the can down the road and ignoring reality is now. I would like all those in attendance that are supportive of this cell tower to stand right now.
Stop.
All right, I'm sorry.
That's not what we get to do, sir.
That's okay, no problem. All right,
Appreciate that.
that's fine. All right, I apologize.
It's okay.
I apologize. Please, let's pass this important legislation, as I don't want to get a visit from Peoria Police sharing my son was hurt or killed because he was unable to reach 911. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. I appreciate
I
it.
apologize for that.
No, don't stress it. Kim Stur. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Hello. I'm a resident of Trilogy at Vistancia. I encourage the City Council to approve the appeal and overturn the Planning and Zoning ruling that denied the application for the proposed new cell phone tower at the Foothills Center in North Vistancia. Cell phone service in our area continues to be a major frustration, and my calls personally are dropped constantly. Beyond the inconvenience, I also have concerns about reliability in the event of a medical emergency or other urgent situation where dependable service could be critical. I agree we need more cell towers in Vistancia other than the one, hopefully two after tonight, with all of the new development yet to come. So I appreciate, Matt, your comments, and Mike, your comments as well. Spot on, I agree. And I wanted to thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. I have a Hetty or Gary Nelson, or both. There you go.
I gotta adjust this, sorry. First of all, I gotta say that I'm really impressed with all the empirical data you guys have. And I've seen the maps of where the coverage is and where the coverage isn't, and the effect the mountains have on the coverage. So there's been a lot of data that's been gathered, and it's great. And I love the fact that you focus so much on safety. And that's really the story we want to tell you today, which is just, it's not an anecdote. It happened 2 years ago. Babe, you want to tell the story?
Yeah, hi. We live next to a wash that has, it's very loud. We live next to a wash that has rocks on it. About 2.5 years ago, obviously it wasn't warm out. So we had the back doors open, and I hear a woman saying, help me, please. I ran out. In the interim, Gary is calling 911. Woman was walking dogs. She fell and was profusely bleeding from her head. I took the dogs, told her to stay there. I'm gonna get ice. In the interim, he's calling 911. By the time I run back to the house, he still couldn't get 911. Fortunately, the woman was okay. She needed stitches. The dogs were fine. I brought them back to the house, but I'm pleading with you to please approve this tower, just for the reason I cannot even get 911 if I go out of my driveway. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely
The other part of
ridiculous.
that call too being dropped multiple times, and we all know that seconds really count in situations like this, which we were losing. The 911 operator, when I finally got them, couldn't see me. Didn't know where I was because of the bad cell service that we have. So it's a big problem, and I hate to think that something bad has to happen before we make a decision on this, but I appreciate your time, and I give you 1 minute and 16 seconds left.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yvonne Perot. Barry Gordon.
Sorry. Oh, it's nice and quiet. Excellent. Greetings, Barry Gordon. I am a proud Vistancia resident. I live less than a mile away from the proposed tower, about 2 miles from the existing tower. Cell service inside my house is incredibly unreliable. Calls are typically unable to connect. If they do, they're regularly dropped. Outside my house, the cell signal dead zone. If a fire were to break out inside my house, forcing me out in the street and disabling my internet service, I would have to walk hundreds and hundreds of feet away before I could reliably call 911. I've been to at least a dozen community meetings, that included this topic over the past 6 years. I've never heard anyone identify or suggest any sort of trend of illness or exposure to non-ionizing cell signals emanating from the existing tower that we have. This design was discussed at multiple HOA board meetings over the years, giving residents ample opportunity to provide input to the board. I am very pleased with the design, even though it is the minimal structure, and the efforts that have been made to blend the tower into the surrounding architecture. We've noticed and we've discussed how a cell tower location isn't as simple as just drawing overlapping circles on a map. There's all sorts of topological features, mountains, things that limit the signal distance in various directions. There's population usage density throughout the coverage areas, limits on the number of active connections. A key thing I think we haven't focused on yet is how our current tower is incredibly overloaded. It is well beyond the saturation limit. So even somebody who is near the outside edge of a full coverage area who might get a full set of bars can't use their phone still because there's not enough active connections available at the existing tower. The Foothills Tower is going to be 1.5 miles away from the existing tower, which will allow load balancing between the towers, and it will unblock the connections down at the existing tower, as well as being able to expand coverage up toward North Point. So if the nearest tower ended up having to be made non-overlapping with the current tower would continue to be saturated. All the existing failures would continue to exist, no alleviation there whatsoever. Lastly, I'll note that stealth means it blends in architecturally, not that it's invisible, which seems to be the ludicrous standard a lot of people are trying to apply to this thing. I'm, once again, fully in support of the project at this location. Recommend that you approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Nancy Borgadas, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Nancy Bogardus, and I am here tonight as a homeowner in the Village at Vistancia and a former board member of Vistancia as well. We did have a town hall meeting open to all residents of the Village at Vistancia, including Trilogy, North Point, Blackstone, and Mystic. The presentation was led by Councilmember Matt Bullock, representatives from TAG, and Declan Murphy from Coal Creek was there. During the meeting, they reviewed the specifications of the proposed cell tower, its planned placement, and architectural renderings. Residents had the opportunity to ask questions, and many of those questions were addressed in detail. What I wanted to say, I'm not going to say, but what I'd like to say after hearing everybody is last year, my mom, who's 88 years old, was very, very ill, and she was in the hospital 5 times. It was very, very frustrating when a doctor called to tell me what was going on with my mom because the call would drop. I was lucky the doctor called me back, but what happened? The call dropped again. This cannot be happening. We need the cell tower. We need to have service. I live all the way at the end of Lone Mountain. We have very little to none coverage up there. And safety, to me, is a very big problem. Safety for emergencies, safety if you have a sick member of the family or a friend that you're waiting for a phone call from, safety for our first responders, safety to get the 911 dispatchers to answer the phones because there's a disconnect between your cell phone and going into the dispatcher's office. We need this cell phone tower. We worked very hard as a board. The placement was not chosen by us. It was chosen, as Matt Bullock said, it was chosen by the companies. We did have a survey, and it was very evident that the cell tower was wanted and needed by our citizens within the community. And I'm asking you to please pass this and appeal what was given to you from the zoning board. It is very important, not only for us, but for our police and fire department. I too was at the groundbreaking for the new fire department. No cell coverage. What's gonna happen up there? And this is not going to be the only cell tower that needs to be added. I mean, North Point is growing. You have Ridgecrest up there. You're gonna have Saddleback. We need many cell towers. Whether that's something you work out with the declarants or you work out amongst yourself, something needs to be done for the growth. It takes a village to develop and grow this community. And I ask you to all do that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Mr. John Forsyth, do I have you on 17R or non-agenda?
Citizen comment.
I'm sorry?
Citizen comment.
Okay, no problem. Perfect. All right, with that, I'll now close the public hearing of 17R. Council, do I have a motion to approve 17R and reverse the May 7th decision of Planning and Zoning Commission?
Mayor, I actually have a motion. I wrote it down to make sure I'm obeying Robert's Rules of Order. I'd like to motion to reverse the decision by the Planning and Zoning Commission and to direct our city attorney to prepare written findings as required by city code.
Second.
First and a second. Council, please vote. And it passes 7-0. Thank you. So I'd like to stay just a brief second. It's extremely important, and I appreciate everybody's comments tonight and patience. For the people that actually are against this, I apologize that these things don't necessarily go exactly as planned, but there's been a lot of planning and time that have gone into these things, and overwhelmingly just the location. All we have to do is we have to follow the rules of what we have. So our left and rights of what we have to follow, and it is very clear that there is a public safety need and a requirement that we need to actually fulfill with this. So the reason I'm saying this is because I realize that not everything goes everybody's way. And I'm not trying to get on other people, right? So, but the reason why these are important is to be able to have patience, because it is an emotional issue. This is one of many that we've had to go through when it comes to things like this. And emotions get high, and we want to make sure that we respect other people's opinions in the same thing. So thank you for everybody's patience. We'll now move on to recognize Mr. Mike Faust to introduce presentation for 18R.
Thank you, Mayor.
Actually, let's pause for 2 minutes, and that way when people, so. Actually, let's take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, the Finance and Budget Deputy Director Peter Christensen will present 18R for discussion of possible action to adopt Ordinance 2026-14, amending Chapter 2 and selected Chapter 27 fee tables, and to approve Resolution 2026-88 pertaining to utility rates and charges. Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Faust. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is something that we touched upon briefly at the March 25th budget study session, but I will briefly review it for you tonight. Last year, we updated our administrative policy requiring a triennial review of all fees in the city so that every 3 years, every fee in the city is being looked at and possibly updated. We went through a number of years where fees just kind of sat there and never got updated with inflation and everything that's gone on. We were vastly undercharging in certain areas. And we have fees that are they're no longer relevant. So with this new process, we'll be looking at all the fees once every 3 years and making changes as appropriate. Last year, we focused on the development fees. You might remember City Manager Faust speaking about that in August. We're now in year 2, which is a review of administrative and business fees in the city attorney, city clerk, court, communications, and finance departments. As we started looking at these fees, it became apparent very quickly that most had not been updated in over 20 years, and that many of the fees were simply obsolete and hadn't been charged in many, many years. So one of the primary benefits of this year's review is just cleaning this up and striking out fees that are just obsolete and not needed anymore, and you see that in the proposed ordinance. The year 2 fees that are still valid are not major revenue producing fees, unlike the development fees, which do result in roughly $10 million of revenues to the city every year in the general fund. We're talking a few $100,000 in total for these fees, and with the changes we're making, probably another $100,000, with most of that coming from a new fee that I'm going to talk about. So we'll get to the new fees. So there's 3 new fees that, as we went through the process, departments just brought these up as kind of random things that they had been, services they've been providing but had no way to charge a fee for the cost of those services. So the first one is a $10 notarized attestation that a person is alive. And my understanding is that this is usually used for foreign pensions or beneficiaries, and we get less than 10 of these a year. So not a big deal, just something that when it comes in, we can charge them a small fee for the cost of us to do that. The next is a massage establishment license fee. This is intended to ensure that no illicit activities are occurring at these facilities through enhanced background checks and inspections. My understanding is that there's a separate team within the city working on an ordinance that will come before council later on this year related to the actual process that will be involved in that. But that's a $750 annual fee. The third fee is a $50 solid waste go-back fee. Solid waste gets about 1,500 requests a year to go back to residences and pick up containers after they've already completed the route. And we have a resident call in and say, hey, I didn't get my can out on time, and so they go back and pick it up. At $50, this would generate about $75,000 a year. So that's 75,000 of the 100 I was talking about in new revenues from all of these changes we're proposing tonight. And the intent of this fee really is to discourage this behavior and minimize the number of go-backs that solid waste has to make. Okay, so on to the updated fees. Staff chose, in looking at these, to do a comparative analysis and to update them, meaning that we simply looked at the same fees in peer cities around the valley, and our intent was to be in the middle or average of our peer cities, and that's what we did. These fees do serve a purpose. They don't generate a lot of revenue, a couple $100,000 total, and most of the fees being updated are liquor license fees. And these are all of the fees that we're proposing to change or increase. In compliance with state law, we posted notices of the proposed changes on the city's website and on social media within the prescribed timeframes as noted here. We are recommending that the council approve item 18R, including updates to existing fees as well as the addition of the three new fees that I discussed. And if approved, these fees would take effect on July 2nd. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I didn't even look this way. Councilor Burl.
This will be less than 60 seconds, Vice Mayor Finn. The go-back fee, you don't need to go back in your slide there, the go-back fee of $50 makes complete sense what it's for. And this is just an understanding question. You said it generates an extra $75,000 at the current rate.
It would if we continue to receive 1,500 go-back calls a year. The hope is that that will actually be reduced, so we wouldn't actually see that revenue come in.
Right, and makes, whatever the number is, it makes sense. You're generating some revenue. But realistically, I'm thinking ahead to, I believe some of my residents will reach out, as I'm sure they will, to everybody to say, hey, what's going on here? Hey, forgot it, help me out or whatever. I couldn't get out in time. And things happen, I get it. But ultimately, it's still costing us money. So a lot of our fees, which I learned last year when we went through it, many of them are to just cover costs. They're not these big profit centers. The revenue is different than profit, obviously, as we know. Can you give me any kind of understanding of, it's $50, I forget to put my trash out on Monday night, I call Tuesday, hey, sorry, can you come pick it up? You have to reroute that truck over to my place. That's labor, that's fuel, correct? Those are expenses that go to come back to my house because I forgot to put my trash can out, innocent as that may seem. Correct? I mean, it's not just somebody hanging out down the street saying, oh, I'm in the area, I'll come anyway. That is a true expense. Any idea on the $50 we're charging, although it's a deterrent, what it actually costs to come back to my house to pick something up? I know it's a ballpark number.
Mayor Pro Tem Bullock, Mayor, I don't have a number at the tip of my fingertips. We can look into that. I would guess that the cost to us is much greater than the $50 by the time you get a large truck with the fuel costs and everything involved in that and send it back out, depending on where it was at the time the call comes in. I'm guessing it would be more than $50 to do that, but I don't know that. We can talk to solid waste and get back to you on that.
And you actually answered my question right there. I was about to say, but I don't have the education that you do on this particular topic. It costs a lot more than $50 to route something that big, even if it's only 10 miles down the street in another neighborhood. So, okay, just making sure this is not the profit center. This is trying to recoup some of the cost from somebody who accidentally didn't bring their trash can out. Innocent, yes, but we can't. We have to recoup that money. All right, thank you.
Okay. Councilor, I have a motion to approve agenda item 18R. Do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote. And it passes 7-0. Thank you. Thank you. I now recognize City Manager Mr. Mike Faust to give his report.
Thank you, Mayor. As the presentation comes up, wanted to give a brief report. You might recall on March 24th of this year, the council voted on city ordinance to make some amendments to Chapter 14 of the city code, specifically addressing electric bikes, electric stand-up scooters, motor-driven cycles. 2 weekends ago, police were out in North Peoria, specifically May 2nd, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and just wanted to provide some highlights. So if you haven't been driving in that area lately, there's been a lot more law enforcement presence, a lot of that trying to curtail some of the speeding that's up there, but they went up to do an education effort in the area, just some stats that came. So they stopped 73 different people. They issued warnings in 46 different cases, and 18 different times they had to issue citations. They did confiscate 6 motor-driven cycles or e-bikes in the course of this activity. I will note that the 2 arrests were not young kids riding e-bikes. They were other situations that occurred. They were in the area, and the police saw another matter and pulled some folks over and ultimately had to make arrests. But I think this just goes with our overall goal of bringing awareness to e-bike safety, to standards to help ensure residents understand how they operate. And I think one of the key things that they shared was some other passerbys were stopping by and asking questions where they were. So I think the word is getting out. Youth are sharing with one another, and parents are learning more about some of the devices that they had purchased for the kids. So I'm glad to see that the ordinance you passed is starting to bring some positive movement. This next one is something that was in the Phoenix Business Journal this week, and stylistically, we like to take things head on, right? Because there's nothing to hide, and we want to make sure we're being transparent in our communication and the details that are out there. So Aligned Data Centers is a project at 75th and Northern. It's part of the Legacy Place PAD. So down in that area, what used to be the Rovey Farms was rezoned as a large PAD back in 2022. But overall, on the general plan, much of that area had been slated for industrial development for the better part of the last couple decades. But it was through the selling of those Rovey Farms to Van Trust and some work that had been done back in 22 that all that zoning fully took place. Back in late 2024, Van Trust sold a 75-acre piece to Aligned Data Centers. By right, that zoning, that industrial zoning allows data centers. The applicant came in September of 25 with a site application. So they went through and did a pre-app, which would have been publicly noticed through our regular communication channels, and started to talk to the staff about what those requirements are. And then they submitted a formal site plan in March of this year. Staff just finished the first review of that site plan, and comments have gone back to the applicant. But I do want to touch on a couple of key facts. It's important for us to make sure that citizens hear directly from us. I think sometimes we could do a better job of communicating. But at the end of the day, as we look at growth and we look at how growth happens intelligently, it's really about setting standards and then applying those standards when people have a PAD area. And so you see dead in the middle site where it says that is the proposed site that Aligned now owns and is moving forward with their project. So when we look at this project, and we don't have any other data center projects going on in the city, we don't have a lot of zoned areas that fit them. You might recall in the Peoria Innovation Corps, there's a special use permit overlay that fits in there. So in this particular one, now staff are relying on what are the codes in place and the standards that we apply. And so first and foremost, the biggest one that comes into play is water. You might recall December 17th of 24, the council adopted the large water user ordinance. So anytime anyone comes in with a large industrial project, one of the first questions we're asking is, what are your utility demands? What's your water? What are your gas? What are your power demands? And from the initial pre-application to the technical write-ups that have come in for the site plan submission, the applicant has told us that there is no cooling water demand with this project. So they're saying we are not a large water user. So by definition, for those who aren't aware, a large water user would be more than 100,000 gallons of water a day. Across the 75-acre site, that's not a ton of water. But in this case, they're saying they don't even meet those requirements because they have an air-cooled closed-loop cooling system. So that was a minimum door to open. Now with that, there's two things that'll go in. There's first and foremost, the team accepts what they're saying, but now we're into the technical documentation review. So people say, how do you confirm that? Well, the easiest way to confirm that is if we don't put a large water meter in, then you know hands down that they won't have that kind of water supply. Now, if they came back and said we need a 8-inch water meter, but we're not going to use that kind of water, we would instantly know there's a problem. So there's very clear and easy technical ways to confirm that they're not a high water user. The second big thing comes into noise, right? So there is, although not constructed yet, there is the Shea project that's down there. And what's shown on this map is phase 2 and phase 1, even phase 3 of this map in the PAD is proximity to residential. So in the proximity of that residential, we're worried about setbacks. We're worried about building heights. We're worried about lighting. And so there's a couple of very specific things that I'll just note there. Number one, the applicant will have to meet the city noise standards, which is less than 80 decibels before 10 p.m. and then 70 decibels or less from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So there's day and night hours. The other thing is the team has confirmed that our requirements are full shielded lights, which mean you'd have no bleed over of lights from the property line into the adjacent property. So that's where the team is now. I think it is important for citizens to hear directly from us, how we engage in these things, because this is an administrative process, right? The zoning was approved in 22. By right, they have the ability to build this. So then as we fold into the technical requirements, it really becomes, how are we looking at setbacks and building heights and traffic flow and water or no water? The one big question I think people would also ask, beyond water, is people ask about electricity, right? That's a private utility company. We know that the duration to get power and power delivered to sites like this is 2 and 3 years long. Those are conversations that they're having directly with SRP. And there is a large power generation plant just to the east of this particular property. So just wanted to reassure the council that staff are working diligently to do a thorough review. We put developers through the ringers. I mean, we just won an award tonight about being one of the best cities to do business in. And I think what sets us apart from other cities is not because we have fungible rules, it's because we're very clear and direct with our rules from the very beginning. We lay it down from the very early point, both at the site, at the pre-app as well as the site plan review, what the expectations are, what they have to do to meet those expectations, and what level of technical review we're going to do to confirm that. So, Mayor, Council, this is just my way of articulating the level of energy and effort that the staff are doing, and I feel very confident in their ability to deliver that. Yep. And last for me tonight, Mayor, I have a quick video on Peoria's All-American Festival.
As the nation commemorates America's 250th birthday, Peoria is proud to host one of the region's premier 4th of July festivals. The celebration features live entertainment across multiple stages, patriotic festivities, food and drink vendors, interactive family activities, and a spectacular fireworks display lighting up the West Valley. The best part is admission, parking, and entertainment are all free. Come and join the fun on Saturday, July 4th from 5 to 9 p.m. at the Peoria Sports Complex.
Just one correction, we actually got the award for being the best city, not one of the best cities.
Did I say one of?
Yes.
I apologize, sir. I apologize. We don't do second.
It was pretty cool. So next is the mayor's report. So we'll see if my video works too, right? So today we were able to open up and do the ribbon cutting on the fleet shop today, which was absolutely amazing. Today we celebrated the new 44,340 square foot fleet maintenance facility, which has been a critical investment in our city's future when it comes to taking care of vehicles and maintaining them properly. The facility includes 14 light duty bays, 9 heavy duty bays, and a drive-through tire bay, providing capacity and maintain repair of city's growing fleet of more than 1,082 vehicles and pieces of equipment. Last year, our fleet team completed 4,832 work orders, serviced 917 pieces of equipment, and issued 15,000 parts, nearly 15,000 parts, including more than 2,300 tires. As I said earlier, the tire business would be a good one to be in when it comes to this, right? And we got some big tires walking through there. So absolutely amazing facility. The team did an incredible job, not only on saving a tremendous amount of money on this facility. I think we cut almost $5 million from the very beginning of this. And it is a extremely safe and a workable building for the city's future, not only for today, but for the city's future. One of the things that we have to look at when we make an investment like this is we had horrible conditions for our employees when we look at the old building, which I think, Kevin, you said they tore down very, very quickly to make sure that we never used it for anything else, right? And But we had team members working in 105, 110, 120 degree temperatures, changing tires and actually maintaining vehicles. This is really the launch for the new future. And we've got some incredible employees there. So next is a Peoria's drone as a first responder program. We have a video from that, which I'd like to share. And now, there we go.
Last week, Peoria's Real-Time Crime Center received a notification about a stolen vehicle. The RTCC quickly launched a drone first responder and within 2 minutes located the vehicle. 6 occupants were observed bailing from the vehicle and running through a mobile home complex. The DFR continued surveilling the suspects while the RTCC guided patrol units to their hiding location.
Hands up! On your stomach! Do it now!
With the seamless collaboration between Peoria Police Patrol officers, the RTCC, and our new DFR, all suspects were safely detained.
We'll catch bad guys on this squad.
Hey, I'm fine, you guys.
All 6.
Hey, I'm Scott.
That's right, dude. That thing's legit.
So this is part of our multi-layered approach that we talked about 3.5 years ago when it comes to the layered approach of not only defense but offense when it comes to public safety. From both everything from our RTCC, which we were able to obtain a grant 3.5 years ago, to our drones first responder program, which you just saw in action, and we were able to obtain a grant, and including the helicopter, which we were able to obtain grants on all of those things. So all of these layered approaches of about $15 million of investment between all of these different pieces have been able to be obtained by us working with not only local public safety, but also using technology to make sure that we're looking out for the city's future. So it's absolutely incredible to see this enacted so quickly, and making sure that we're keeping officers safe. Thank you. And with that, we will go to, next on the agenda is call to the public. As a reminder, each speaker shall refrain from personal attacks, foul, abusive language, and will maintain a civil and courteous manner and tone. Members of the audience shall respect the rights of others and will not create noise or other disturbances that will disturb or disrupt the meeting. Mr. John Forsyth.
We'll defer my comments to the next meeting.
Okay, no worries. Patrick McCarthy. Eva Asuna.
I will not. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I begin, I want to thank City Manager Mike Faust for providing some information on the health clinic feasibility study following my comments last week. I appreciate that. The follow-through was very well. I understood more about that study, and it's important for the citizens to know what's going on. So I appreciate you. Thank you. Let's see. This past weekend, my team and I met at Varney Park before heading out to canvass the surrounding neighborhood. While there, I remembered concerns that had previously been raised about the condition of the park restrooms, so I decided to take a look for myself. What I found was disappointing. The restrooms lack basic supplies, needed cleaning, and were not in a condition that I believe residents should reasonably expect from a public facility. What concerns me most is that this is no longer an isolated observation. Over the years, I've raised concerns regarding maintenance issues at Windrose Park, Ira Murphy Park, and now Varney Park. In some cases, I spoke from this podium. In other cases, I went directly to city staff or Parks Department to report concerns and bring attention to the conditions that needed to be addressed. I understand that capital improvements are planned for Varney Park, and I appreciate that investment. However, my concern is not whether a restroom is old or new or waiting for renovation. A brand new restroom can still be dirty, and an older restroom can still be clean and well-maintained.
Whether a park is old or new should not matter. Residents should be able to expect clean, safe, and usable facilities, basic maintenance, cleanliness, and functional restroom amenities, including soap dispensers, which those restrooms in Varney have none, should be standard throughout the city. I'm not here to criticize our parks employees. In fact, my concern is whether they have the staffing, resources, and support necessary to maintain the level of service our residents deserve. If the issue is not staffing, then I would appreciate a better understanding what is causing these recurring conditions. Varney Park serves as an established neighborhood and sits next to the Boys and Girls Club, and as summer activities increase and more families use these facilities, these recurring concerns warrant a closer look to determine whether additional resources, maintenance, scheduled, staffing, or other operational changes are needed to ensure that residents have access to clean, safe, and usable facilities. All residents deserve the same standard of care and service, regardless of which part of Peoria they live in. I have pictures. I have almost everyone's phone number except for Councilmember Stokes. I can send you the pictures. They're disgusting. And no one should have to be using those restrooms. So if you want pictures, I will send them to you. Just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Natalie Gilstrap.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you can see, I came tonight, timing was perfect. I didn't know city manager's report was gonna be data centers, but let me just tell you how disheartening it is to find out that there's gonna be a data center in your city online. No notice from council or the city. I mean, you guys all have emails, newsletters. I know we get stuff in with our utility bills. Nothing. So that was my first thing. I would like a moratorium on data centers until we know the impact. This is a desert. We are running out of water. Lake Mead's going dry, Colorado River's going dry, Wind Cap's gone. When I worked here, we said, oh, don't worry about water. We have 150 assured years of water. Well, if there is no water to begin with, 150 years worth of rights isn't going to do anything for us. And just because a general plan allows a data center doesn't mean we need one. And maybe you should bring it to the public. And the fact that it's not going to go before the city council, it's not going to go before P&Z, you guys would have it in before half of the city would even know. So that's my beef. And in closing, let me just say, when I was listening to the affordable housing comments, until all of our elected officials can realize the trickle-down effect doesn't work, the rich keep getting richer, the poor keep getting poorer, it's not gonna work. 40 plus years ago, when I moved to the Valley from a small town, I did get a job at Safeway as a carryout. I could afford my car insurance, and a studio apartment, making less than what? Probably less than 10 for sure. Now you have graduates that are making, my son, for example, recent graduate, making $25 an hour. You can't afford a studio apartment with $25 an hour. So I love the efforts that you're doing, but until you can raise the wages, it's not going to do anything for anybody. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. And there being no further business, I hereby declare the meeting is adjourned.